Amazing moment, Billionaire's outrage revealed one touching sentence that transformed everything. Jake Reynolds stood under the flickering fluorescent lights of the cramped kitchen, the scent of reheated pasta mingling with the musty air. He served his father a small portion, his hands trembling slightly as he passed the plate across the table. Just a year ago, he was the star of Silicon Valley, a promising engineer with a tech startup that had potential to reshape the industry. Now, he juggled odd jobs delivering groceries and fixing tech issues for neighbors, all under the weight of responsibility for his father's declining health. The news on the TV blared, snippets about billionaires and their outrageous ventures grating against Jake's bitterness. "The tech world cares only about the glittering facade," he muttered, his grip tightening around the fork. He'd poured everything into his dream, only to see it crash around him. The memories haunted him: the late nights at the office, the hopeful pitches, the moments of triumph followed by devastation. He glanced at his father, his once strong figure now slumped, eyes clouded with the passing years. What had he gone wrong? Jake felt like a fraud as he drifted through this new life, forced into finding meaning in menial tasks. "Jake?" His father's voice broke through Jake's spiral of self-doubt. "You've been so quiet lately." "Just tired, Dad," Jake lied, forcing a smile. Inside, a storm brewed. Each bill that piled up, each drop in his father's health chipped away at his resolve. Couldn't he be more than the shadow of his previous success, stuck delivering groceries in a hurry to make rent? Turning back to the TV, Jake's attention snagged on Olivia Hartman, the renowned billionaire, as she commanded the screen. She spoke with flair about the latest challenge in the industry, but what stuck with him was a single line: "You're only as valuable as your ability to lift others." The words seared through his chest, twisting in a mix of anger and yearning. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake swallowed hard. Was he lifting anyone? Or was he merely scraping by, slowly folding under the expectations he'd once thrived on? The overwhelming tide of resentment swelled within him, accompanied by the unmistakable pang of regret. He thought about that meeting coming up. The job offer from the prestigious firm had felt like a blessing at first, yet as the days went on, he realized how ill-prepared he was to swim among sharks. In the first board meeting, when he finally spoke up with a daring project proposal, the scoffs of the executives echoed in his mind. He froze, humiliation wrapping around him like a steel vice as they dismissed his ideas with condescension. It wasn't just their laughter that hurt, it was the creeping doubt that his dreams had been childlike fantasies. Jake glanced at the clock, heartbeat drumming loudly in his ears. Would he ever escape the swirling depths of his fear? As he locked eyes with Olivia during this tension-filled meeting, he felt a flicker of something: adrenaline or hope, maybe. But the shadow of his past loomed not far behind him. What kind of fight would this be? A fight for redemption? For recognition? Each passing moment felt like he was grappling with a sinking ship. A revelation hung in the air: he would lead or retreat, but the weight of his choices pressed down like a leaden blanket. Would he cling to the remnants of ambition or risk losing it all in a world he no longer understood? In this new terrain, the stakes rose higher, and the real battle was only just beginning. Jake sat alone in the dimly lit diner, nursing a cold cup of coffee. The hum of conversation faded into the background as his thoughts raced. Each flick of the spoon against the ceramic echoed the doubts swirling within him. It had been 2 days since that disheartening board meeting, and yet the sting of their laughter still pulsed in his chest. Had he truly lost his touch? The brilliant innovations he once crafted seemed like relics of a distant past, overshadowed by new giants of the industry. The sting of abandonment gnawed at him deeper with each failed venture he recalled. Yet, Olivia's words lingered, wrapping around his consciousness like an unshakable mantra. You're only as valuable as your ability to lift others. He left the diner, pushing through the glass door and stepping into the cool evening air. A chill crept over him as he contemplated what lifting others would even mean in his current state. There was a flicker of determination but a heavier weight of self-doubt. What could he possibly offer at this low point? As he wandered the streets, memories of his father's failing health clouded his mind. Each step felt heavy, burdened with guilt and uncertainty. Then, on a whim, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. A name stood out, an old college friend, Amelia, who had always been a source of encouragement. Without thinking, Jake dialed her number. The ringing felt like a countdown, each beep a reminder of how long it had been since their paths crossed. When she picked up, her voice was bright and warm. "Jake. It's been ages. How are you?" His facade began to crumble as he admitted, "I'm not great, Amelia. I feel lost. I thought I could make an impact, but lately, it seems impossible." Her response was a flurry of enthusiasm. "You've always had the potential to drive change, Jake. Remember that hackathon project? You led that team to success even when no one believed in us. You can tap back into that." Desperate for clarity, he said, "But how? I feel like I'm stuck in the past." Amelia hesitated, then moved straight to the heart of it. "Turn your energy towards something meaningful. You've got this wealth of experience. Why not use it? Mentor younger developers or collaborate on open-source projects. Lift them, and you'll find your way back too." The idea resonated inside him like a thunderclap. What if he shifted his focus? Instead of cycling in circles of doubt, he could channel his knowledge into helping others, building up a community that thrived on innovation and mutual support. After their conversation, the path ahead seemed clearer. He mapped out a plan, outlining the potential benefits of mentoring and collaborating. Jake felt the adrenaline rush anew, fueled by the thought that maybe, just perhaps, lifting others would serve as a lifeline for him too. As he settled back into his apartment, a wave of resolve washed over him. He would dedicate his evenings to creating a workshop for aspiring developers. Each session could reignite the spark that had dimmed within him. He would guide them through the complexities he had once conquered, transforming his journey into a beacon for others. But just as a plan formed, his mind clouded again. Questions surged: what if no one came? What if he was still viewed as a failure? He caught his reflection in the window, shadowy and uncertain, pondering his next moves. The clock ticked ominously, reminding him time was not on his side. It was crucial to act. But he had to confront those inner demons first. What would he truly sacrifice to reclaim his place in the tech arena and, more importantly, who would he become in the process? The answer would reshape everything. The next morning, with his mind brimming with ideas and a budding purpose, he woke up ready to fight. In reflection, he realized the time had come to confront not just the naysayers at work but himself. Unpacking the layers of his fear, he prepared to step toward the challenge of reviving his identity, a challenge that promised deeper revelations. What awaited him in this endeavor, and how deeply could his past inform his potential re-released? As the possibility loomed, the fight for his redemption was just beginning. Jake awoke to the sunlight filtering through the blinds, illuminating the wavering shadows in his apartment, a visual metaphor of his state of mind. With each ray, he felt the weight of his previous failures pressing against him, but the flicker of determination grew brighter. Today was not just another drift into obscurity, it was his for the taking. He needed to act. He began by jotting down ideas for his workshop on scraps of paper strewn across his dining table. A mixture of anxiety and excitement raced through him. What should he teach? The nuances of coding? Best practices of project management? He realized quickly that the technical elements weren't the only focus. He had to imbue his sessions with the lessons he learned from both successes and failures. He began writing an introductory lecture that would frame his experience through the lens of resilience and adaptability. As he brainstormed, he faced an internal struggle. Who was he to instruct others? His hesitation crept back, whispering malignantly in the corners of his mind. Yet, dismissing the voice required action, he set aside the negative thoughts at least for now and focused on the purpose behind his workshop. It was not about him, it was about helping others navigate their own challenges. After a quick breakfast, he opened his laptop, a familiar weight in his hands. He crafted an email to send out to his network, detailing the workshop's objectives. Mentor a new generation, he typed, sensing the words gaining an urgency of their own. His fingers hesitated over the keyboard. What if he hit send and no one responded? No, he couldn't dwell on the possibility of failure. He pressed send decisively, his heart racing. Jake stepped out into the world, the bustling streets thrumming with life. The energy of city around him nudged him, pulled him into the rhythm of possibility. He encountered a local tech cafe, its facade adorned with colorful murals, and decided to step in. The aroma of rich coffee mingled with the hum of conversation, the air thick with creativity. He sat at a table in the corner, nursing an espresso while observing small groups of young developers discussing projects, their faces lit with excitement. The scene alighted something deep within him. He felt the cumulus of doubt lift slightly, and with it came a revelation. He wasn't merely a vessel of knowledge, but a connector of minds. Over the next few hours, he worked on refining the workshop details and suddenly caught himself clicking through social media platforms, exploring tech forums, and connecting with potential attendees. Response after response flooded in, eager to learn from someone they viewed as an industry veteran. Emotions rippled within him, joy and disbelief mingled. There was something invigorating about stepping into the role he had nearly discarded. Yet, shadows lurked. He had reached out, but how deep did his knowledge run? Would he be found lacking when the moment to instruct arrived? Confidence battled doubt ferociously within him. Just then, Amelia called, her voice bright like rings of a bell. "I saw your email. I'm so proud of you, this is fantastic." "I hope I don't crash and burn," he admitted, the confession spilling out like a soft tremor. "Don't think about that now. Remember, Jake, fear can be a great teacher. Use it rather than letting it use you," she replied, her conviction snaking through the airwaves and relaxing his tension with every word. That evening, he returned home and stared at the workshop title on his screen, now a beacon of possibility. But the fear remained, coiling tighter at the edges of his aspirations, reminding him of the risks he had yet to confront. In those moments, he felt a shift within him. He was beginning to see fear not just as a danger but as a catalyst for deeper self-reflection and understanding. What if confronting that fear could unlock more than just his ability to teach? What else was trapped within him, waiting for the right moment to emerge? Determined, he turned off the computer and stood in front of the window, feeling the warmth of the setting sun on his face. He would rise to meet this challenge, not only to lift others but to lift himself as well. But as he stood there, a familiar voice echoed in his mind, questioning him: was he truly ready for what lay ahead? The answer barely brushed the surface of his consciousness, leaving him caught between anticipation and trepidation. Could he really shape the minds of others while piecing together his own? As anticipation swelled in him, he realized the real struggle was just beginning. Days passed in a blur of frantic activity as Jake poured himself into the logistics of the workshop. He transformed his apartment into a makeshift planning hub, sticky notes plastered across the walls, each one representing a thought, an idea, or a fear that needed confronting. Organizing his materials took precedence, but so did managing the rising tide of anxiety that came with anticipation. The workshop date loomed closer, and with each sunset, his confidence fluttered like a kite caught in unpredictable winds. He woke up each morning with steel resolve, yet the questions crept in once more: who would come? Would they see through the facade? Imposter syndrome felt like a relentless companion, challenging his brave face at every turn. Determined to silence his inner critic, he struck out for the cafe where it all began, where creativity thrived on the airwaves of vibrant discussions. As he sipped his espresso again, he forced himself to engage with the world around him, listening intently to the chatter of collaboration. He gathered tidbits of inspiration, trying to absorb the enthusiasm surrounding him. These young developers were tackling problems head-on, a stark contrast to his tightly wound self-doubt. Every expert was once a beginner, he reminded himself, but questions lingered, each one a dissonant chord in his mind. Before he realized it, he was spiraling. Was he even qualified enough to speak on resilience when he felt so fragile himself? With each passing hour, the workshop transformed from an opportunity to share knowledge into a mirror reflecting his unresolved fears. That evening, he met with Amelia again, searching for reassurance in her steady gaze. "This is going to be incredible," she assured him as they reviewed his presentation materials together. But as she flipped through his notes, uncertainty loomed over him. "What if they ask questions I can't answer?" he blurted out, his voice tinged with desperation. "Then you'll answer honestly," Amelia said firmly. "There's strength in vulnerability. You're not here to show them how perfect you are but to guide them through their imperfections." Her words struck a chord that reverberated within him. This was not just a workshop, it was an authentic connection he sought. An idea sparked: what if he created a space not just for instruction, but for genuine dialogue? It would invite others to share their fears and failures, a safe environment where vulnerability was embraced, not punished. As the workshop day approached, he revised his materials to emphasize storytelling, weaving in personal anecdotes rife with setbacks and lessons learned. He decided to foster an interactive atmosphere, where participants could share their voices, too. Each shared struggle could serve as a ladder, allowing them to lift one another while simultaneously elevating him. The night before, sleep eluded him. Instead, he sat in the dim light of his living room, reviewing his notes. The mix of anticipation and anxiety kept his heart pounding, and yet, at that moment, he realized that he was no longer just preparing to teach. He was preparing to grow alongside those who would come. Every fear seemed less daunting when reframed through this lens. This felt more like an invitation to a collective journey rather than a solitary pedestal. As dawn broke and the day of the workshop dawned, he felt the weight of determination settle over him as he dressed. Underneath the nervous energy, there lay a burgeoning readiness to meet what lay ahead. Just as he was about to leave, a text from Amelia pinged on his phone. "Remember, it's your journey, too. They're as eager to learn from you as you are to learn from them." Jake caught his breath, a wave of courage washing over him. He stepped out into the world, heart racing not from fear but from an empowering sense of purpose. As he boarded the bus, the fear transformed into exhilarating anticipation. But lurking beneath the surface was a different tone of uncertainty. Who would show up? What if all his efforts fell flat? A deep breath settled within him, pushing back the dread that threatened to surface. He felt an undercurrent of potential. A shift after this, he would never be the same. The moment to stand before that room was approaching, yet Jake could feel it. He was on the brink of something profound. As he took his seat in the front of the room, surrounded by faces expectant and eager, he wondered, was this the breakthrough he had been searching for, or was it merely the beginning of a journey fraught with unforeseen challenges? As the room settled into a hushed anticipation, Jake could feel the thrum of energy pulsing through the air. Each face turned toward him held a spark of curiosity, some even teetering on apprehension, emotions that mirrored his own. He was neither their mentor nor their maestro. In this moment, they were equals, forging paths through a shared experience. Taking a steadying breath, Jake stood, feeling both exposed and liberated. The familiar encroachment of self-doubt hovered at the edges of his thoughts, but he brushed it aside as he began to speak. "Thank you all for being here today. I want to share my journey, not as a flawless guide, but as someone who knows what it feels like to stumble, to doubt, and to rise again." Jake's voice gained strength as he spoke of his struggles with failure, the moments when he felt utterly lost, weaving tales of resilience and vulnerability that invited the audience to nod along in recognition. As he illustrated his own missteps, he saw expressions of sympathy transform into reflections of their personal battles, and a few heads even nodded in encouragement. He called for participation early on, inviting attendees to share their stories. When he first posed the question, a silence fell over the room. Anxiety prickled within him. Had they expected a lecture? But then, a young woman bravely raised her hand, breaking the stillness. As she spoke of her own setbacks, others began to follow suit, recounting their fears, hopes, and dreams. The atmosphere shifted palpably. The collective vulnerability dispelled Jake's rising anxiety like sunlight through fog. In the midst of an exchange about overcoming failures, he glanced around the room. Faces flooded with emotion, some crinkled in laughter, others softly contemplative. He felt an unfamiliar, invigorating sensation surge through him, a blend of belonging and purpose. He was no longer alone in his uncertainties. They had conjured a space that was safe and supportive, and for the first time, it felt contagious. Yet, amid the elation, an unsettling thought crept in. Was he truly worthy of their respect, or was he merely a vessel for their shared experiences? What if he faltered and failed to provide the guidance they sought? The fear that had haunted him returned, though it was swiftly overshadowed by something deeper, a realization. He needed to confront those unspoken expectations, to challenge not just his doubts but theirs as well. "We are all here to learn, possibly together," he declared, "and that means embracing our imperfections. If I trip over my words or stumble in my insights, let us laugh together and learn together." A ripple of laughter met his declaration, a shared understanding sparking bright across the expanse of the room. As the workshop unfolded, moments of beauty surfaced, concepts were explored and dissected, laughter rang out amidst revelations, and tears were shed in catharsis. Each shared tale chipped away at Jake's lingering insecurities, reinforcing the very lessons he aimed to impart. When the session finally came to a close, there was a lingering buzz among the participants. Many stayed back, exchanging thoughts on their vulnerabilities, and it struck him how this workshop had transformed from his solitary journey into a collective odyssey. As Jake began to pack up his materials, a young man approached him, eyes wide with sincerity. "Thank you for sharing with us today. You made it okay to be vulnerable," he said. That simple acknowledgement enveloped Jake like a warm embrace, filling the spaces of self-doubt with grace instead of fear. However, just then, as laughter and discussions hummed around him, his phone chimed with a notification, an unexpected message from Amelia. "How did it go? Remember, every step forward is its own victory." He paused, struck by the reminder. Beneath the surface of triumph lay another question, a greater challenge awaiting him. Was he truly ready for what came next? Today had taught him about connection, but could he transform this experience into a sustained commitment to growth? The moment loomed. Before him, a threshold not yet crossed, and he felt the familiar rush of anticipation mixed with doubt. It was time to confront the next chapter of his journey, but just how deep the waters would reach remained unknown. Jake stared at his phone, the words from Amelia ringing in his ears like an unrelenting reminder. Every step forward is its own victory. Yet behind her supportive message lurked a question that clawed at him: what did it mean to move forward? As he surveyed the mingling crowd, a subtle tension coiled inside him, whispering insecurities he thought he'd addressed. The laughter that enveloped others felt distant, almost a sepulchral mockery of his tumultuous thoughts. Could he harness the connection he forged here and channel it into something lasting? He didn't want this moment to fade into memory. He wanted to build a structure that could support more than just this fleeting experience. With resolve, Jake stepped away from the lingering group. He moved toward a quieter corner of the room, seeking solace and clarity. The echoes of shared vulnerability pursued him as he hovered on the brink of self-discovery. He had felt the intoxicating power of vulnerability today. Was it enough to construct a new foundation for himself? He needed to delve deeper, to confront what lay at the heart of his ambivalence. This workshop had unveiled something significant. He wasn't merely a participant in their narrative, he was a catalyst. But where did he fit in the grander scheme of his own ambitions? Jake scrutinized the empty space around him, pulling out a notebook to jot down his thoughts. What had resonated so profoundly with the attendees? What lessons had been exchanged? He began listing out themes: vulnerability, resilience, transformation. As each phrase danced across the page, he felt a growing sense of empowerment. But amid this elation, a deeper contemplation gnawed at him. What would be the path ahead? Jake could easily slip back into the comfortable realm of uncertainty, but now the stakes felt higher. He wasn't just charting a path for himself, he was responsible for others. The desire to guide, to be a beacon, sent ripples of both thrill and anxiety coursing through him. Could he genuinely be the compass others might rely on? A thought crystallized: he needed to extend this experience beyond occasional workshops. But how? Could he cultivate a continuous dialogue? Perhaps a blog, or even a podcast, where participants could share ongoing narratives? Ideas cascaded in his mind like a verdant stream, but undermined by the fear of exposure. The moment he stepped up to the microphone again, he would be standing on shaky ground. What if he failed? What if he tripped over his own vision, much like when he first articulated his struggles? The weight of that what if threatened to smother his initial surge of confidence. But beneath the panic flickered a tenacious mix of curiosity and ambition. This could be a turning point. Just as he began to write a plan, another message appeared on his phone, this time from a number he didn't recognize. "We need to talk." Important. The pulse of urgency coursed through him. Who could this be? Was it someone from the workshop? Doubt intermingled with anticipation, straining the air around him. He had met vulnerability with openness today, yet this unexpected communication felt like an insistent bell tolling in the distance. Was this a distraction from his newfound vision, or perhaps a sign? Was he prepared to embrace whatever challenge lurked behind that message? Uncertainty danced in his gut, a stark reminder that growth demanded courage. Jake took a steadying breath, the echo of Amelia's words surfacing again. Every step was its own victory. He had crossed a threshold into connection. Now he had to march forward into the unknown, where the truth awaited. His heart quickened as he readied himself to respond. What awaited him could redefine everything he thought he knew about success and vulnerability. Another leap into the depths of his journey. Jake's fingers hovered uncertainly over the screen of his phone, the resolve built from his earlier reflections at the workshop dissipating into a swirl of apprehension. A part of him wanted to ignore the message, to retreat back into the safety of contemplation. But another part, a surge of ambition and curiosity, urged him toward engagement. The fear of remaining stagnant battled fiercely with the desire to evolve. He tapped the screen and typed back, "Who is this?" The words darted across the darkness of the room, a brief light in an expanse of uncertainty. Almost immediately, a reply came through, "It's Ruben. We need to discuss what happened today." Ruben. The voice of reason he had leaned on during the workshop. As the brief interaction unfolded, Jake felt an odd mixture of comfort and dread. Ruben had a knack for dissecting emotions into actionable insights, but today's message felt ominous. Why was it so pressing? Was there something Jake had overlooked, or worse, mishandled? He needed clarity. He channeled the nervous energy coursing through him into action, rising from his corner and making his way toward the exit. The crowd outside continued to radiate warmth and laughter, their carefree nature only amplifying his internal disarray. As he stepped outside, the brisk night air hit him like an invigorating splash of water. He breathed deeply, centering himself amidst the chaos of his emotions. Jake knew he required focus to absorb whatever insights Ruben had to offer. This conversation could near the tipping point of his transformation. Every interaction was a crucial puzzle piece, and he felt poised at the edge of discovery. He arrived at the designated spot, a dimly lit cafe where he and Ruben frequently shared ideas and strategies. Waiting inside, the warm glow illuminated Ruben's alert face, the corners of his mouth turned up in a slight smile, one that quickly faded when he sensed Jake's tension. "Jake," he said gently, signaling for him to sit. "What's bothering you?" Jake hesitated, the unspoken words clogged his throat. How could he articulate the maelstrom of thoughts swirling in his mind? He decided to be vulnerable, to open the door he had so consciously stepped through earlier. "I feel like today was pivotal for me, Ruben. I want to cultivate something out of it, perhaps create a platform for ongoing connection. But I'm overwhelmed by self-doubt. What if I fail?" Ruben leaned back, assessing him with keen eyes. "Failure is part of every journey. Think about it, what had the most impact on you today? What forged connections?" Jake mulled over the question, the workshop's themes bubbling to the surface: authenticity, mutual support, shared stories. Vulnerability, I guess. Everyone was so open, and that allowed for real connection. Yes. And it's that same openness that will resonate in whatever you create next. But you have to ask yourself, what do you want to communicate? What unique story do you want to share with the world? The word struck him like lightning. What was it he yearned to express? The answer hovered just beyond his conscious grasp. He realized then that his sense of duty wasn't solely about others, it was an opportunity to discover himself anew. "I want to share how vulnerability can incite growth, not just in ourselves, but in our connections with others," he finally said, his voice steadier. "But how do I sustain these conversations? Feed them?" Ruben nodded, a spark igniting in his eyes. "Think about it. You might consider starting with small steps, maybe a series of posts, or even discussions where you play the role of facilitator. It's about nurturing a space, Jake." The excited pulse of budding ideas coursed back through Jake like a thrum of electricity. Yes, or maybe what if I interviewed others? United their stories, their struggles with vulnerability? Now you're talking. Ruben's enthusiasm was infectious. You can inspire others by illustrating real experiences. Your insight can spark dialogues, and that's how you sustain what you've built here. Jake leaned back, the weight of untapped potential swirling around him, filling the previous void of uncertainty. This was more than just a project, it was a calling. Yet, with the realization sparked a fresh wave of fear. Would people embrace his vision? Or would he simply be echoing the doubts that had once defined him? Ruben's voice broke through the buzzing in his mind. "And about that message, you'll need to address what happened today. It's not just about you channeling your experience, it's a pivotal moment for your audience as well. Own it. Clarify your vision." Jake swallowed hard, understanding that the balance of vulnerability he craved required accountability as well. He nodded. "You're right. I'll follow up with everyone." As they wrapped up the conversation, an unanswered question lingered in Jake's mind, intertwining with the weight of the task ahead. He was awakening to a journey, but how far was he willing to go to face the inevitable trials and the true potential of himself? The uncertainty loomed. Could he rise to the challenge of not only leading others but diving deeper into the facets of vulnerability within himself? The night was far from over, and he felt like he was on the verge of something monumental. With fresh determination, Jake pushed the door open, ready to reclaim his path, but a new text notification appeared, casting shadows of doubt over the clarity he just achieved. "Can we talk? There's something you need to know." Jake's heart raced as he stared at the latest message on his phone, the words pulsing in the darkness. "Can we talk? There's something you need to know." A surge of fear twisted in his stomach. Who was reaching out now, and what could they possibly have to reveal that would be significant enough to disrupt his newfound clarity? The anxiety felt as if it squeezed his chest. He glanced back at Ruben, who watched him closely, a knowing look on his face. "What's up?" Ruben prompted, interrupting Jake's spiraling thoughts. "Just got another message," Jake admitted, the weight of uncertainty heavy in his throat. "I think it's from someone who might complicate things." Ruben's brow furrowed slightly. "It's your journey, Jake. But if it doesn't serve your growth, consider letting it go. Jake nodded, knowing inherently what that meant. He had been caught in cycles of worrying about perceptions before. Whatever this new information was, he could deal with it if he opted to face it head-on rather than turn inward. This was his path, and he was beginning to understand that navigating discomfort was essential to transforming his aspirations into reality. Summoning his will, he typed back, "Yes, let us talk." What's the issue? Waiting for a reply, Jake's mind wandered back to the workshop. He could still hear the murmur of voices sharing their truths, all those moments highlighting the beauty embedded in vulnerability. It occurred to him then that his entire endeavor hinged on authenticity, both in his narrative and the narratives of others. As he contemplated this, the cafe around him served as an inspiring haven of collaboration. The soft chatter, the clinking of cups, a barista delivering lattes to the right tables all unfurled a tapestry of shared human experience. Jake inhaled deeply, fully aware that fostering supportive dialogues required him to be immersed in this energy, this shared act of being and growing together. His phone buzzed again, pulling him from contemplation. "Can we meet at the park?" the message read. "Guess I'm off," Jake murmured, throwing a curious glance toward Ruben. "Do you feel ready to pursue this?" Ruben inquired, his tone both supportive and probing. "I think so. I'm just hoping to expand on the ideas we discussed," Jake replied, his voice gaining strength. "Learning to build a platform from vulnerability means addressing whatever arrives, right?" Ruben smiled, pride glinting in his eyes. "Exactly. Lean into that discomfort, that's where growth happens." With that, Jake stepped outside again, the night wrapping around him like an embrace. The air was cooler now, invigorating him as he strolled toward the park. The streetlights cast warm pools of light on the pavement, brightening the paths of exploration ahead of him. As he approached the park, Jake thought deeply about how much was at stake. This meeting could define not just his project but could unearth new layers of his own identity. His pulse quickened at the thought, was he truly ready to wrestle with whatever revelation was heading his way? Arriving near the fountain, he found a solitary figure seated on a bench, shrouded in shadows. The person's demeanor suggested they were waiting in anticipation, mirroring the tension building inside Jake. "Thanks for coming," the figure said, recognition gleaming in their eyes. As they began to speak, Jake felt the fabric of his plans shift once again. "I know you've been starting new things, Jake. I'm here because there's something from the workshop about you specifically that nobody else knows." The air crackled with the electricity of the moment, tightening around him like a noose. He suddenly realized that stepping into this conversation could either anchor him or uproot him entirely. What secret could alter the course of his plans? What truth lay in wait that had the power to reshape his outlook? As the words flowed, he understood this was more than just a conversation. It was a turning point, one laden with uncharted challenges and revelations lurking just beneath the surface. For better or worse, Jake was about to discover a pivotal truth about himself, one that could bridge his vulnerability with action, or potentially leave him stranded in the midst of his ambitions. Jake took a deep breath, steadying himself as the figure across from him leaned forward, their voice low and urgent. "What I'm about to share could change everything for you, Jake. It's about your past, something you might not even fully realize is holding you back." The words haunted him as they slipped into the night air. The past. It had been a specter lingering just out of reach, its tendrils wrapping around his aspirations, suffocating them. He had steeled himself against the shadows of previous failures, crafting a narrative of resilience and growth. But what if that narrative was incomplete? "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, feeling a tightening in his throat. The figure shifted, casting their face in a gentle light from the nearby lamppost. "You've been carrying a weight, Jake. The workshop was a breakthrough, but sometimes what's hidden can choke the life out of new beginnings. Do you remember your speech about confronting fear?" Jake felt exposed. Yes, he had spoken about courage, about dismantling barriers and building authenticity, but it was easier to preach than to practice. What are you saying? I thought I was moving forward. Are you? They pressed, their gaze piercing. You have an opportunity now, but are you truly ready to face what lies beneath your carefully constructed surface? There's a reason you struggle to anchor yourself in this new chapter. Nagging uncertainty gripped him. The cool night air, once refreshing, now felt charged with a frigid current of truth. Jake bit his lip, wrestling with the notion that he might still be tangled in a web woven from past mistakes and unacknowledged fears. His mind raced through memories he had tucked away neatly, convinced he had moved on. I don't know what you're talking about, he replied, though the quiet self-deception in his voice betrayed the growing unease within. The person sighed an empathetic sound that resonated deeply. You're not the only one who has observed the disconnect between your aspirations and your actions. Others have noticed too. Your fear holds the powerful potential to shape your journey. That same fear can compel you, but it can also trap you in old patterns. Whatever you're dodging, it's only going to resurface louder unless you confront it. Jake's pulse thudded in his ears. With every revelation, the walls of his comfort zone began to tremble. Could he truly untangle himself from this invisible tether? He had felt the shadows looming over him for months, their whispers edging into his mind when he stumbled, making him question his worth and ambitions. Is this why I keep hesitating? Why I can't fully embrace the next step? He ventured, desperate for clarity amidst the chaos of his thoughts. Yes, the figure confirmed, sitting back as if relieved to have put the weight on the table. Identifying your truth is vital. The work you're doing depends on your ability to be candid, first with yourself. What were you running from? What stories are you telling yourself that don't serve you anymore? Jake squeezed his eyes shut, flashes of childhood insecurities and teenage failures rose up like a wave, crashing over him. Each moment weighed heavily, memories of self-doubt and missed opportunities threatening to consume him. Was this the very fear he needed to face? The raw, unfiltered pain that he hadn't dared to peel back the layers to confront? As the darkness swirled around him, he felt a flicker of light fighting through the shadows. I want to face it. I really do, he murmured, with newfound resolve. This wasn't just about a project anymore, it was about reclaiming parts of himself he had abandoned. The figure nodded slowly, as if recognizing the shift. Then let us start there. Acknowledge the stories you've been carrying, and choose how you want to rewrite them moving forward. Jake's heart raced with a blend of terror and exhilaration. Confronting his truth was fast becoming a necessity rather than an option. Yet, a deeper conviction took root within him. To navigate this challenge, he needed to map his history with honesty and courage. As he contemplated the words spoken, uncertainty lingered in the air, ready to root around future revelations. Could he truly unearth the courage buried beneath layers of doubt? The moment felt electric, pregnant with possibility, yet the journey ahead promised to be fraught with obstacles. He was on the edge of a revelation that could either liberate him or clothe him in heavier chains. The stakes were rising, there was a long road to walk if he wanted to emerge whole. Are you ready for this? The figure's voice broke through his thoughts, steady and calm. Jake inhaled sharply. The question hung in the air, and he felt it pierce through the superficial layers he had guarded for too long. Suddenly, he wasn't so sure anymore. Each answer held weight, but which path would he choose to tread? The echoes of his decision loomed ahead like an uncertain tide, ready to swell forth. He could either cling to the security of the past or leap into the unknown and find clarity. The choice loomed before him, the next chapter of his life stirring on the horizon. Jake sat on the park bench, the cool night air settling around him like a soft blanket, infused with the urgency of the moment. He stared at the figure sitting opposite him, the gravity of their words still resonating in the space between them. The potential for a groundbreaking transformation lay just beneath the surface, one that threatened to shatter the confines of his self-imposed limitations. I'm ready, Jake declared, the the determination igniting in his chest. If it means confronting my past to create a stronger future, then bring it on. These words, once whispered fears, now resonated with a fiery resonance. The figure nodded, their eyes reflecting understanding and encouragement. Then let us start unpacking it. What are the stories you've been carrying? What shadows have you allowed to dictate your worth? With the air filled with anticipation, Jake felt the barriers within him begin to crumble, revealing the intricacies of his past. He spoke softly at first, recounting moments of shame and disappointment, moments where he felt inferior or overlooked. It was like peeling an onion, layers of hurt and correction that shaped him into doubt. I've always been scared of failure, of being seen as less than what I'd hoped for. Building my startup was supposed to be my redemption, but when it collapsed, it felt like I collapsed with it. I thought that by distancing myself from those emotions, I was protecting my future. Instead, I only weighed myself down. His voice cracked slightly, but the vulnerability felt cathartic. A knowing nod from his companion encouraged him to push further. I've been afraid that if I open this door, I won't just walk into the light, but instead will be met with everything I've avoided. You're probably right, they replied gently. But facing the darkness is the first step toward transforming it into something powerful. Vulnerability leads to strength, Jake. You're not just shedding the past, you're reconstructing your identity on your own terms. Jake marveled at the thought. It was a momentous shift from seeing his past as a hindrance to viewing it as a foundation for growth. As he shared more tales of his father's struggle with illness, his own isolation after the startup failure, he began to feel lighter. He realized that in sharing his burden, he was not only liberating himself but also connecting deeper to those who had faced similar demons. He reflected on the workshop again, the raw emotions, the camaraderie, the strength discovered in sharing stories. Recalling how participants had resonated with his own tales of vulnerability sent a wave of realization through him. He could cultivate a community built not just on shared knowledge, but on shared humanity. I want to build something that thrives on this connection, he articulated, the idea growing wings in his mind. I want to bridge our stories together, turn fear into action. I could hold forums, create a supportive online space, invite others to share their truths. We could lift each other as we navigate our paths. As he spoke, he felt the fears that had once gripped him fade away, replaced by a fiery ambition. He envisioned this platform, not just a workshop but an ongoing dialogue where vulnerability was celebrated, a generator of empowerment. No longer would he be the shadow of past failures, he would emerge as a beacon of shared resilience. A smile broke across his face, bubbling with positivity and hope. Suddenly, everything began to align. But it's scary, he admitted, contemplating the daunting task ahead. What if my own fears pull me back? What if I can't sustain it? And what if you can? The figure challenged, their eyes shining with encouragement. Every time you step beyond your comfort zone, you not only face your fears but also inspire others to do the same. This is where true leadership exists, right where discomfort meets shared courage. As dawn broke with threads of sunlight beginning to weave through the trees, Jake felt invigorated. He was shedding the weight of debilitating self-doubt, more aware now of the strength found in vulnerability and connection. This wasn't just an epiphany, it was a defined moment of transformation. He left the park with renewed resolve to take actionable steps. Jake began drafting plans for the platform, writing, inviting stories from others, creating a safe space where people could share their vulnerabilities without judgment. With each keystroke, he felt the shackles of imposter syndrome falter bit by bit. With the sun uplifting his spirit, he found himself smiling genuinely for the first time in what felt like an eternity. He had not only confronted his darkness but had also found a way to channel it into something bigger than himself, a collaborative journey. As the days unfolded into one another, Jake committed to consistent outreach, building a community that thrived on the shared truths of its members. The stories poured in, and much like his own path, a tapestry of collective resilience began to form. Recognition soon followed. People appreciated his initiative, bravely voicing their vulnerabilities. Jake's platform flourished, echoing the very values he had once feared to embrace. He wasn't merely guiding others, he was transforming alongside them. Then came the moment he had unknowingly anticipated: a request from a prominent publication to feature his story and the initiative he had birthed. As he read the message inviting him to share how vulnerability sparked change, he realized he had achieved something remarkable. He had claimed his identity not just as a tech innovator, but as a catalyst for emotional growth within his community. The shadows that had loomed large now served as symbols of transformation, reminders that no setback could define his worth. Jake stepped into the spotlight, reflecting on a journey that had illuminated his life in ways he had never imagined. He felt empowered and ready not just to tell others' stories, but to craft a narrative built on lifting each other. For the first time, he truly understood the meaning of lifting others. It was lifting oneself while lending strength to those around. As he embraced his newfound confidence, he forged ahead, ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that every step of the way would lead to growth for him and for those who chose to join him on this extraordinary journey. Now is the time to act. You need to subscribe now to our channel to catch the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire and uplift you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. This really does make a difference in reaching others who need these empowering messages. Comment your reactions and theories about Jake's incredible journey and the power of vulnerability. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformation. Don't wait even one more second. Support the channel and let us grow together.